Sure.
Good morning, everybody. It is Friday afternoon. I'm sorry, Friday morning. What am I doing? It's been a long day. It's been a long day already, guys. Welcome. This is Real Estate Talk TGIF. And, I usually make screw ups every now and then, and here it is. Here I do it all the time. But you know what? It's all in love. And here we have today Real Estate Talk TGIF episode 224. That's 221 weeks in a row. That's over 4 years. Have not missed a week. We are here. We're lucky. We're very lucky here on Real Estate Talk TGIF to have greats from all over the country. And today we have one of the same greats from Alabama. And his name is Phil Duke Jr. And we're going to be talking to him in a minute. And we're going to get going. Phil, thanks so much for coming on. I appreciate it. And Phil's going to be talking about how he got into the business and how he's been able to be a top agent, top producer, broker owner, etc. But first, Real Estate Talk TGIF is brought to you by realestateskillbuilder.com and sponsored by njheroesprogram.com, where we help our heroes get better into the home ownership and easier and cheaper. And we are ready to rock and roll. Real estate agents, are you looking to acquire clients consistently to grow your business and income for a great lifestyle? Well, this is Dave Finale, and I'm here to bring you the Real Estate Skill Builder broadcast, Real Estate Talk TGIF, brought to you by Real Estate Skill Builder and the Modern Agent team. Good morning, everybody. The new intro, I'm still liking it. Might change the music, I'm not sure, but I'm still liking the new intro. Phil Duke, good morning. How are you today?
Man, I'm good. I like the intro, man. That music got me fired up. So
awesome. Great. So Phil, you're in Northport, Alabama. You're the fastest growing real estate company, I believe, in Alabama or in that area. But how did you get started? I mean, you started a long time ago, did something else, and came back. What's your story, man? Let's talk about that.
Yeah. Well, I just kind of luckily jumped into real estate on accident. I ended up right out of high school. I was going to a community college here in the Tuscaloosa area. So Tuscaloosa and Northport are kind of the same, city. One's on one side of the river and one's on the other. The University of Alabama is here, but there's a couple other good colleges or universities here as well. And so I was at a junior college, just knocking out my core classes, and the real estate class was an elective, a business elective, which my plan was to go to business school. So I took it on a Monday night. It was every Monday night from 6 to 9 or 6 to 9:30, something like that. And as a 19-year-old kid, I was like, hey, this sounds kind of fun. Like, there's a lot of money to be made in this. And so I got in it really looking for easy money. And I found out, fairly quickly on, it was not easy money. And so 19 years old, getting licensed, youngest real estate agent in the area at that time. And, actually had some success, sold some houses in 2006. And then 2007 happened. Then 2008 happened. And here I was, as a young kid, none of my friends were really buying houses, and not a lot of people in general were buying houses in 2008. And so I ended up, flunking out of the business, inactivating my license, joined the military, joined the Army, and I'm still a reservist today. I still do 1 weekend a month. I'm going on I guess this is my 14th year of being a reservist now, doing 1 weekend a month. So I'm still doing that. Went back to college, finished my business degree, got in the corporate world, ended up doing pest control sales of all things. Never thought I'd be, a bug guy, but I was the one that would go out to the house and diagnose a problem and crawl underneath to see if there were termites and give somebody a price. And I was kind of lucky. The company I worked for they'd never had a full-time sales rep before, so they didn't really know what to do with me. So I had a lot of freedom. And I think that allowed me to really kind of figure out, what worked for me, what was my style,
right,
who I was. At that point I was, 26, 27 years old, still trying to figure out, I'm still kind of a kid, but I'm trying to be an adult. And really that freedom that I had of being able to set my own schedule and making money off of commission sales really is what ultimately prompted me to be like, hey, if I was as committed to real estate as I am to this job today, in the pest control side of things, I I think I could do pretty good at this thing. And I was interacting with a lot of real estate agents at that point. They'd call me to do the termite letter, which is something that's required, I think in most places. And so I'd meet them, and they'd be driving fancy cars, and most of the time they'd be showing up late, and just seemed like, man, like these folks don't really even seem to have it together, and surely I can do just as good as them. And so that prompted me to get back in the business in 2015. Jumped back in at that point, had a child on the way, was married, had a mortgage at that point. And I'll tell you, there's a couple things. I'll probably come back to this in a minute. Just the game was a whole lot different the second go around, because I knew what I was getting myself into. I think I knew that I was going to have to prospect. I knew that I was going to have to set appointments. I knew that I was going to have to know what to say on those appointments. I knew I was going to have to overcome some objections. And instead of trying to, get around that and trying to figure out a way of not doing that, which I think was kind of the case the first go around, I just said, you know what, if this is what it's going to take, I'm just going to do it. Again, I don't know if it's the military thing or if it was just, being a little bit, a little bit more grown up, being a little bit more committed. But it was like, if this is what it's going to take to be successful, then I'm going to do it. And I can find somebody who can help me do it. And so I've been really fortunate over the last couple of years to have some really great coaches and some great mentors in my life as well, who have been able to pour into me, and they're further along the journey than I am. And every time I'm trying to figure out like even today in the season I'm at right now, we just opened up our 10th office. I'm trying to figure out like what is my next step here? What do I need to be focusing on day in and day out? And I'm fortunate to have some people in my corner who have been at this level and beyond. And I would say, having a coach has been a big difference, but also just being more committed, and just doing the things that I knew I was actually going to have to do. So jumped in part-time, ended up going full-time about 6 months in, closed 59 transactions my first full-time year, ended up starting a small team, then started a brokerage. And then as of today, we've got 10 locations. We've got over 160 agents between those 10 locations, and also, running a mortgage business and a title business on top of that. So it's been a total night and day difference, but I'm the same person as I was. I'm just a whole lot more committed to taking the action. I think that's been the ultimate. The information is out there now. Again, your show, other podcasts, other live streams, coaching courses, YouTube videos. The path to success is out there. It's just how willing are we to commit to doing it? And I think that was really the big change in me. So I think that's really why I've had so much success this go around, and why I failed out the first go around. So,
you know what, man, there's so many things that you said in your own intro that, we talked about a lot of things the other day when our pre-production meeting about different things. And I want to go down a few things that you just talked about. You said you knew you were going to have to prospect and do all the things necessary, follow up, do this, do that, whatever it was. And you basically said to yourself that this is what it takes. This is what I'm going to have to do. Mm-hmm. Preface the question with knowing that there's a lot of agents that get into this business, because we're here to give value to other people and not just talk about ourselves. Sure. I want to talk about the meaning of what you meant there, and also relate it to agents that really don't want to prospect, or they don't want to follow up. And this was really something you and I both attended an event a couple of weeks ago, the Market Proof Mastermind. And our mutual friend and coach, Grant Wise, talked about, people are meant to do what they want to do. They want to do what they want to do. And you can't judge, he said, and this, I will never forget this. You can't judge a fish by his ability to climb a tree. Right. And what he meant by that was agents want to do certain things, but you decided in the very beginning that you knew what you had to do. Talk to me about that commitment, which is something else you talked about. Talk to me about the commitment. And when you got into it, you understood what was necessary. Was it because you were in it for a couple of years earlier that you didn't want to do that there, or you knew that was what had to be done? Long question. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I think it was a little bit of both. I think, when we, as a young, 19-year-old kid going through the course and learning about real estate, it sounded, really fun. But ultimately I didn't really realize it was going to be a sales job. And so I get hired on, and had a really good broker in the beginning. I mean, she was, part of the Mike Ferry sales system, and it was,
Right.
Scripts and dialogues and objection handlers. And I was like, oh man, I wasn't kind of ready for all this. And really, had call reluctance. I was afraid of rejection. So I think that was just like, I really wasn't ready for that. I never had a sales job before. But then, I think the years of doing the pest control sales job, I was doing those things. Okay. I mean, I set my own schedule. I didn't just have, appointments pop up on my calendar magically. It was calling current customers that we had who maybe they had started pest control services. They wanted somebody to come by every month and spray for the spiders and the roaches and all that kind of thing. And it would just be, hey, thank you for signing up for our pest control service. Hope that's going okay for you. Want to let you know that we would do every new pest control customer we get, we try to do a free termite inspection for, just to make sure your house is free and clear of any termites.
Right.
It will be a good time that I can come by and do that for you. And about 50% of the ones I went to, again, we're in Alabama, zone 1 for termites, worst zone in the country.
Wow.
And so about 50% of the houses I would go to, I would find that there was termite issues there. And that's not much different than prospecting in real estate, right? I mean, we're calling buyers to see if they want to set up a chat to talk about, getting pre-approved. We're talking to sellers to talk about what they could do to improve the return on their investment in their house. And then we're just going on that appointment and trying to figure out how we can provide value there. So I think it was just a combination of the two. I think it was, number one, just knowing that this is what I'm going to have to do. Business isn't just going to come to me. I'm not going to just announce on social media that I'm back in real estate and business is going to flood in. You'll get lucky. You'll get some here or there. Right. But in your first year particularly, you got to go out there and make it happen. Right. And so I think I had the confidence as well from doing it for a number of years in the pest control industry of just getting on the phone, making the calls, going on the appointments, getting deals closed. I felt like I could do the same thing in virtually any industry. And now, even, kind of fast forwarding to where it's at today, it's the same thing today. I mean, we're always, trying to recruit an agent, or we're trying to recruit a team leader to open up an office with us, or we're trying to recruit somebody to leave this brokerage to come open up a first-class office with us. It's the exact same thing. It's generating leads. The leads have to be followed up on. You follow up on them enough. You go on appointments. You know what to say. And then there's some follow-up between the time you go on the appointment until the time you get them closed. So it's just, becoming attached to the process and just knowing that this is just really what it's going to have to take. So I think it was a combination of both of them, though.
So I want to go a little bit further with this, okay? And we talked about, you knew you had to do these things, and that's how the question started. And then as you answered the question you were talking about, you knew you had call reluctance way back then. You knew about the rejection and everything else. And then as you did your termite business, and I want to parallel some stuff here, Phil. Yeah. And I want to parallel people in other jobs. People leave some jobs to get into real estate. People stay in their job, go part-time, and then as they move along and start getting successful, they love it so much they want to go full-time. Yeah. And I want to parallel the thing about a full-time job or a regular job, a 9-to-5er, right, as we would call it. Yeah. That they're doing things that they have to do in that job anyway. And part of the things that they have to do in our business is to build a business is to prospect. So let's equate that to showing up at your job on time and doing the things that is prescribed to you by the job description that you have. In our job description, and I did a video on this week, it was my multi-channel video, was a real estate agent. The definition of a real estate agent is get buyer contracts signed, seller's contract signed, and prospect for those contracts for the business. So there's a lot of things to look at when you parallel a regular job to real estate. And I think that's where the transformation might be missed when someone's leaving one job to come into real estate. Would you agree with that? What do you think?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, if you're just getting in real estate 100% because you just want to do whatever you want to do whenever you want to do it, you're probably not going to have a very successful career, right? I mean, I don't like prospecting. I still get nervous today. We do a power hour every morning at 9:00 with our agents here, and I'm calling and trying to recruit agents. I still get nervous about calling, my peers, my fellow agents out there in the local areas. But I know that's what I've got to do. And just like, when I was at that full-time job and I had to be there at a certain time, and, I didn't necessarily want to be there at that certain time, but I did it because that's what I had to do. And I think one of the most, one of the skills that we look past so often is the skill of a real estate professional or an entrepreneur to be able to just do the things they want to do when they don't want to do them. There's been a lot of times that I just, alarm clock goes off in the morning. The kids were up late, stayed up late watching something on Netflix with my wife, and just, man, I could really use another hour. But if you can just get yourself to do the things that you don't really want to do, but you need to do them, if you can just master that one skill, that will translate into so many other areas of your life as well. So yeah, I think that gets looked past a lot. I think the great thing about the real estate business, though, that's different from the 9-to-5 world, is if you're willing to do the things that you need to do that a lot of others aren't willing to do, you are the one that has the freedom. The agents that don't have the freedom are the ones that aren't prospecting. They're not going on appointments during the week. And then they've got a date night planned for Saturday night, but the phone rings at 5 o'clock and somebody wants to go look at a house. And guess what? Date night is canceled because I didn't have an appointment all week. And here's my one chance I'm going to have all week to maybe go out and close some business, versus the agent that comes in every single day and tries to go on an appointment every single day during the week. That was a big clarity, thing that I found in my real estate business when I was producing was, hey, if I come in during the week and I'm doing my job and I got that door closed and I'm prospecting for an hour or two a day and I'm going on an appointment every afternoon, I can let that Saturday afternoon call go by when I'd rather be like, I'm a big fisherman. I'm going fishing today. I'm going to pick up my first grader from school today. I'm going to hook up the boat and we're going fishing till dark tonight. You can't do those kind of things if you are at the mercy of somebody else. And so, those of us that take control of our schedules, that control our prospecting efforts, our marketing efforts, the appointments we're going on, we can say no. I could say no to that Saturday afternoon appointment because I just went on 3 listing appointments 3 days in a row. I can't do that if it's my only appointment I've had all week. So to me, I found there was more freedom in just getting up and doing the things I didn't want to do than letting other people dictate how my schedule looked like.
So is it about doing your stuff when you get up and just getting it done and being done with it? It's like Brian Danny said, like my afternoon schedule is completely open. I can play golf. I can do whatever the hell I want.
Yeah.
So it's the same for you.
Yeah, it really is. Every day this week, I've been at the office from 8:15 to about noon. I might have 1 or 2, calls in the afternoon. My calls today are usually video chat, so I can do those from anywhere. But I can do that because in the mornings, I'm still in the office with my team. I'm still prospecting. I'm still creating video content that's going to turn into booking something on my calendar. I'm still doing the same thing today. I'm just not going after buyer and seller leads the way I was when I was in production. But it's the exact same game, whether you're it's just all lead gen, whether you're generating, termite leads, whether you're generating buyers or sellers or recruiting agents or recruiting a team or recruiting a business partner. It's the same thing over and over and over.
I have a very good friend of mine that has been high up in the Realtor Association. And I saw him the other day, and I'm privileged to call him my friend. I'm not going to go into a name, but he said, I said, how's it going? You feel free now? He says, just now I can just recruit, which is what I love to do, right? I can do that because it's fun. And he has like 15 offices, so he can let everybody else do everything else. And what you've just explained was you've transitioned your sales and listing business to your ownership business of, building your business, whether it's recruiting or whatever it is. You're still doing the work in the morning to build your business. And you just transformed your life into, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do whatever I've got to do in the morning. This is my stuff. It is essential to me and my business and to me building. So everybody needs to look at this as an example of success, right? And yes, Bill, you're a success. You're one of the greats, and that's why you're here talking with us. But it's what you've done in the grassroots, and you've also gone through the learning stage to learn how to do it? Because correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you may have failed a couple of times in your life as well.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. There was a time, before I got into the pest control thing where, I thought at one time I started a personal training business. It failed. I was at one time I was a world record holder. I was very competitive power lifter at one time, and was even a world champion one year, and thought I would just be a personal trainer and turn that into a job. And that flopped. I thought at one time I wanted to be a firefighter, and ended up going to the fire academy, and did real good until it came time to go in that burn building. And I realized, man, I'm going to have to actually go into burning buildings. This might not be what I want to do the rest of my life. And ended up as a limo driver, just trying to make enough money to make it work. And so I've seen both sides of it. And I would just say it's hard either way. It was hard when I was, picking people up at the airport at 2 a.m., at 11 p.m., taking naps here and there, just trying to figure out how to make the money work. I've also seen it to where, you've got so much money coming in, you don't even really know what to do with it because you've never experienced, a $50,000 month ever in your life. And so I'd say both of them are hard. And so we get to pick in the real estate industry what kind of stress we want to live. It's stressful either way. It's stressful whether you have 0 closings coming up or if you've got 10 closings coming up. It's stressful if you have 1 office or 10 offices. It's stressful either way, but it's just different kinds of stress and it's different levels. And if it's going to be stressful either way, I would much rather have the kind of stress that comes from having the success than just barely scraping by. So yeah, I've definitely, seen, felt, and experienced both sides of it in my career. And, I prefer to live on the side of continually trying to grow and continue trying to go to the next level. And that is stressful. A lot of people would look at it and say, well, why can't you just be happy with one? Or why can't you just be happy selling? Or, but to me, like it's stressful either way. We just get to choose, how far we want to go in this thing. So it's just a personal choice I've made. And it just came down to having clarity. To me, success to me means being more, I've got to be more successful at home than I am in the business world. And if I'm working every night, every weekend, crushing it out there, selling tons and tons of houses, but I'm never there with my family, my kids don't get to see me, I end up divorced, that would be a failure to me. To some people, it wouldn't be. I know people that have gone all in on selling houses and, and that's what they've chosen to do. But for me, where, my parents were divorced, my wife's parents were divorced. A lot of it was because of financial stress. We just decided early on in our marriage that we weren't going to let that, be what we look like. So that's why I do the things I do. That's why I still get up early. That's why I still prospect, because I want to be done in time for when my kids get home for the day. I can be dad. I can be a husband. I can be there with my kids, having fun, living an epic life, and not being forced to go when other people want me to go. So yeah, if you take more control of your schedule, you have freedom. And to me, that's what success looks like for me.
So let me ask you this question, which is going to sound really stupid. Can anybody do what you just described?
Yeah, I think they could. It's been one of the things though I've had to learn along the way. When I first became a broker, I really thought I could take anybody and show them exactly what I do, because I think it's pretty simple. I mean, it's not. If anybody came and like followed me around for a day or two, they'd be like, "This is kind of boring. Like this is not groundbreaking, earth-shattering kind of stuff."
No, it's not.
It's not. And I still believe that I could get anybody to do 30 plus deals a year, but I haven't had that many people that I've hired who have actually gone that far. And so it also takes a level of commitment. Like I can show you the path all you want. And if you're listening to this and you're a broker owner, you're a team leader, you're aspiring to be, just because you lay out the roadmap for people does not mean they're going to necessarily follow it. But it's still your job to lay out the roadmap and set the condition and set the environment. But yes, anybody could do this. Now it might look different. They might do it a little bit different way.
Right.
But I just don't see how anybody could fail if they prospect daily and if they go on one appointment a day and they do that Monday through Friday. I just don't really see how you could fail.
So I want to ask you a question, because my objective with Real Estate Talk TGIF has always been to bring value to agents.
Yep.
There's a lot of agents out there, Phil, that want to prospect, and they don't get to it, or they don't do it, and they feel like shit at the end of the day. I didn't do that, because we all know that the feeling of discipline is much better than the feeling of regret, right? But I'm going to say there's the old 80-20 rule. So 20% of days do 80% of the business, and 80%, a lot of people say, they're not doing well, or they're not working, they're not lazy, whatever. But let's talk about half of that 80% that feel this regret because they know what they're supposed to do and they're not doing it. First of all, they get distracted. All right. And distractions happen. They just need to be more focused. And that's easier said than done. But the question I have for you, Phil, is how do you communicate as a broker owner, as a team leader, as a coach yourself? How do you communicate to get someone to 30 transactions when they're starting out, when this is a problem?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I can't speak for you, Dave, but I'm betting this has happened with you as well.
Yeah.
Even I've gone through slumps in my career. It happens to everybody where, you put stuff off, it starts piling up. You have all these open loops that you need to close, and you just don't close them, and it starts piling up. And then you actually just finally, like, one day you're just going to do it, and you're like, man, that took me 15 minutes to do. Why didn't I do that sooner? I've been thinking about that in the back of my head.
Hell yeah.
So it happens to me around my house all the time. Like we just got done remodeling 2 of our bathrooms. I don't know why I hadn't done it yet, but my wife went out and bought 2 doorknobs, and I need to put doorknobs on both of those new doors. I just hadn't done it yet. So, but I would just say for somebody that's in this, in the real estate world, at some point you just got to get yourself started. I think getting started is the hard part. So instead of making, if you haven't been calling, if you are in a rut, if this has become your day in, day out, I know I need to do this. I get distracted. I get to the end of the day and you know what, but tomorrow is going to be different. And then tomorrow happens and it doesn't happen. At some point, you just got to set what I would call a micro commitment. James Clear writes about this in his book, Atomic Habits. It's one of the best books out there. If you are struggling with anything, any kind of personal habit that you're wanting to stop or start, he talks about the concept of a micro commitment. And what that would look like is, instead of saying, I'm going to come in and make 1 hour of phone calls a day, is you just start off by saying, I'm going to make 1 phone call a day.
Yep, exactly.
Just 1. Because right now, if you're not doing any, 1 would be better than 0, right? And what starts happening is, over time, again, it doesn't matter whether that phone call was at 9 a.m. or 9 p.m., but you just don't let a day go by that you don't make at least 1 sales call. So you make that call. Hey, I'm getting some momentum. I've gone 3 days in a row and I've made 1 sales call. You start believing, I'm the kind of person that's making phone calls every day. You start building up votes for yourself. You start building your confidence back up. Right. It's like the people that set New Year's resolutions. I'm going to work out 7 days a week. Starting January 1st, but they only worked out 7 times all year. Yeah. It doesn't happen, right? I mean, you can be motivated for a couple of days, but you have 1 day that gets you off, and now you feel discouraged. So I would say start off really, really small. Just get yourself started. And what I have found with coaching agents now for a couple of years, if we can just get them to make the first call, that first call, you're interrupting somebody's day. You can almost, when you introduce, hey, this is Phil Duke Jr. with First Class Real Estate Capstone, you can almost through the phone feel them going, oh, another salesperson. Right. But if you can just get through that first call, you can almost get into a rhythm. So then next thing you've gone from 1 call a day, you're staying on track. Well, now let's bump it up to 3 calls a day. And now let's bump it up to 5. Next thing you know, you're up to 10 or 15 a day. You're not even having to think about it. And that is an area that will translate over to any area of your life. If you're wanting to get into exercising, don't tell yourself you're going to work out for 30 minutes a day, 7 days a week. Tell yourself you're going to do 2 push-ups a day. 2 push-ups a day is not going to get you in shape, but it will start building up votes for yourself inside your head that you're the kind of person who exercises every single day. And next thing you know, 2 minutes a day turns into 15 minutes. 15 minutes turns into 20 and 30. And next thing you know, you created a habit for yourself because, you have become the type of person that does it every day. So I would say that would be something for anybody that's struggling out there. Start really, really small and set yourself a micro commitment that, even on your very worst day, you could keep it. Even if you got to 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night, oh my goodness, I didn't do my 2 push-ups for the day. Just sit down in the as you're brushing your teeth, just do those 2 push-ups and you're good to go.
Yeah, this is the biggest issue I think that new agents have and other agents have. I mean, there's so many agents that are doing good business. Look, in my area, you do 10 to 12 deals, you're doing okay. But I don't think that's a top producer. I don't care if you made $100,000. I don't think that's a top producer. I mean, 24, 34, 50, that's a top agent, and moving forward from there and how you leverage yourself. And that's one of the things you've been able to do through one thing, through commitment, right? Commitment's a difficult word to understand, but if you make a goal, it's not a goal, it's a hope and a dream is what it is. And a commitment is measured by what you actually achieve, your results, right? As we've learned. So one of the other things that I've learned about you, and you talked a little bit about earlier, was having a coach. And you've been through the Mike Ferry organization, who I know so many people. I have never been involved in that. I've been in the Tom Ferry organization, been coached by John Cheplack, Grant Wise, as you and I are now. And you also mentioned Joshua Smith. Joshua Smith, one hell of an individual. That's GSD mode. If you guys don't know who Josh Smith is, and you and I were lucky enough over the past few weeks to actually see him in person. And I actually had some time with him alone because we both were working out at the same time, and quite different workout, I will tell you.
Yeah.
But it's about coaching is what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Being coachable and being open to hiring a coach. How did you decide that you needed to hire a coach when you had the commitment? What did you need? Mike Ferry organization, legendary, no question. And his scripts and what he tells you to do, legendary. What about you? What was your situation?
Yeah, well, I had been exposed to, the Mike Ferry organization the first go around because, that broker was part of that organization and was in their management coaching. And so it was his whole sales system. It was a bunch of old, 1980s, DVDs and really you could open up that stuff today and it works. It just does.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was really just being honest with what I really needed and where I was weak. And knowing that the first go around, I didn't really have a lot of accountability in my life. I was just kind of doing my own thing. And so, I felt like, and again, like when I hired, again, I was a part-time agent. Our house payment at that point was only like $825 a month. And here I am hiring a coach for $1,000 a month. Like it was a big leap of faith. That was a lot of money for me to be spending at that time. But I ended up making, over $200,000 that first year. So it was a really, really good investment, and it was nothing that I had not heard before, but I think it was just having somebody holding me accountable. It was somebody that I knew for 30 minutes a week. I was going to be talking to my coach.
Right.
And then I think it was also realizing that there's other ways out there too. So at the same time that I was in that coaching program, I got into Joshua Smith's business mastery, which is like a 90-day boot camp style group thing, which I'm still part of today. Really good friends with Joshua Smith, and then you plug and play where you need from there. I mean, there's been times where I bought courses from John Cheplack. Obviously I'm coaching still today with Grant Wise. And then I also coach with Ryan Finch, who is the CEO and the founder of First Class Real Estate. And all of them have their areas of expertise. And I'm always curious, how do I keep this thing going? Like at some point, am I going to hit a ceiling? And to me, it's not really about the money these days. It's just more about, how can I make this fit my lifestyle a little bit? Yeah, I got all these agents now. I got all these deals coming in. How do I make this fit the way I want my lifestyle to look? And how can I improve it? And how can I do better? And how can we be more efficient? And so I would just say, anybody out there, if there's ever anything that you've done at a high level, I'm betting you probably had a coach. And part of it was just looking deep, at where I had success and where I had failures.
Right.
I had flunked out in a couple of businesses. I'd flunked out in real estate. I'd flunked out on the personal training thing. But one area of my life where I had a lot of success was in competing in powerlifting. And the guy that helped me get started, he was a world champion when I started working out with him.
Right.
And I was a 17-year-old kid who got a gym membership. And he told me, if you'll come in every day, I will teach you exactly what you need to know. And by the time you graduate high school, you'll be the strongest kid in your class. And I was like, well, okay, well, that sounds pretty good. It's like 115 pounds going into my senior year. I mean, they used to call me Little Phil, and I didn't like that. And so next thing you know, I'm doing my first competition, and I set a state record at that one. And a year later, I set a national record. And 2 years after that, I set a world record. And he was right. And it was just the daily environment. I was, we had 3 guys at our gym who had been former world champions and world record holders. And so, I just kind of looked at that and was like, you know what? I was really good at powerlifting. I'm not anymore. I'm kind of washed up now. I'm not really that good anymore. I don't really care about lifting heavy anymore. But that was an area that had, a lot of success in. I mean, I was elite in it at one point, and it was because, number one, I was committed to it, but I also had people who were a little bit further in the game than me, right, who were pouring into my life. And so that was something that I just realized, hey, that worked for me in the gym, and I didn't really make any money from that. I mean, it was just, all for fun. There's not really sponsorships and that kind of stuff out there. There's nobody who's a professional powerlifter. It's not like basketball or football. Everybody's just doing it for fun. But I looked at that in my life and said, hey, the one area where I've had an extreme amount of success, I had a coach, I had a mentor, I had an accountability partner. If I'm going to do this real estate thing, I really need to have something like that. So yeah, it was a big light bulb moment for me, realizing that was something that I really needed.
Right. So we also look at this as you're more than one coach, right? We both have more than one. I think we both had that for a long time. And there's other people we look at as far as mentors, and we're able to talk to. I have a lot of associates in the business that I work with every day, and I consider them mentors and coaches of mine, and I talk to them a lot. And the biggest obstacle, to give myself a little plug here, the biggest obstacle to a lot of agents is money, right? When it comes to coaching, and me, I do it a lot different ways. So if anybody's interested, you can reach out. But money's an obstacle. Don't worry about money. Just do what you have to do and get forward. You talked about your mortgage was $8 and change a month, but you're paying $1,000 a month for coaching. New agents, they don't really want to spend that. They don't understand it. But there's other ways to do it. I'm just saying that. So,
yeah.
We've talked a lot about, we had a conversation the other day, and I said, we might not even touch anything we talked about, and we haven't yet really. When we talked about coaching, and that's how you got into it and stuff, and you've gone from agent to team leader, owning a brokerage, and then a franchise. Talk to me just a little bit about that process and what your mindset was. You're an agent, and then what was the next step, and how did you do it? Because I want everybody to remember that one of the things Phil has done through his entire career, he's already gotten to a point, and what's next, and that's where you're at. So talk to me a little bit about that progress.
Yeah. Well, I just, for a long time, I never, ever would have thought I would be a team leader or a broker owner. I liked being a solo agent, with an assistant. That's kind of the way I rolled for the first couple of years there. But you realize, at some point that you don't really have a business. You have a very high paying job, but you got to continue producing listings. You got to continue to produce buyers. And so, really just, some things happened in my life where I had to be gone for a little bit. It was looking like at one point that my unit was going to get deployed overseas. So we were training for that. Was gone for a good while for that, preparing for that. We didn't end up going, thank goodness. But that happened. And then the day that we were coming home, my wife ended up having a miscarriage. So I come home to a grieving spouse, and really things came to a grinding halt there, because I had, about 60 days of no prospecting, no lead follow-up, because I'm stuck on a base, preparing to potentially deploy somewhere. Now come home, my wife is grieving, I'm grieving. She's going through a pretty serious bout of depression there. And I really felt the effects of me not being out there prospecting, lead generating. And so the pain of that feeling of seeing my income go down, because I wasn't able to do the prospecting really is what caused me to take action to eventually start a team. And it started off as just, I need somebody to be showing houses, when so that I can focus on more listings. I just need more listings. So, I got a couple showing assistants, and I was totally out of showing houses from that point forward. I don't even have the eKey app on my phone. I can't even show a house today. It's been that way for years. And so then, I got those showing assistants up and going. They were doing good. I kept taking listings, and then I kept recruiting agents as well, and keep building the team up. And then it got to a point where it was, I'm really at a fork in the road here. Like, am I going to be a broker who still produces, or am I going to go all in on this recruiting and training and coaching thing? And so I ended up giving all my listings away at that point as well. And so I think a lot of it's, for me, is just knowing that there's different levels out there and experiencing the pain points of hitting that ceiling. Like you can only take so many listings. And for me, it was, I was never a mega producer. 60, 80 deals a year. But that was doing it just Monday through Friday, not working weekends, really just prospecting and taking listings. But you just get to a point where, there's got to be other ways to make money out there too. And so I think part of it for me was just getting clarity on what I wanted. There's a bunch of times, and anybody who's watching this that has been that road, there's a lot of times where you analyze, did I really make the right call? Should I stayed in production? Life was a little bit simpler then, when I didn't have staff and multiple locations and all that kind of stuff. But, there's always other levels out there. And I think a big part of it for me has been just being around people who I have seen who have been able to go through those levels. And there's a path for that too. Getting out of doing the buyers is the first step of most people getting out of production. That was a path that Joshua Smith laid out for me, because that's how he did it. And then getting out of the listings was really kind of the same thing. And then from there, it's just your ability to let go of things. I was a really good listing agent. I was a good buyer agent. I was a good recruiter. I was a good trainer. I was good at onboarding agents. But if I am the funnel, if everything has to come through me, then I still don't truly have a business. A business should be able to run without me even showing up. And there's times that mine does today. There's times that I have to jump back in, and that's kind of, how I see it today. Is today I'm kind of the coach, and my team and my admin staff, they're the players. They're the ones out there running the plays and actually, scoring the points. And every once in a while, I just need to insert myself and readjust, realign, clarify vision, define goals and objections, all that kind of stuff. And so to me, it's just challenging. It's just the challenge of knowing how I can get to the next level, and knowing that it really is, kind of unlimited. A lot of good books out there for that. E-Myth Revisited was the book that really changed the game for me when it comes to building a team, building a true business. And that's one that, in the beginning stages of my career, I just read books and read books and read books. And, it kind of almost just became like a vanity thing. Like, oh yeah, I've read that book. But today I just kind of have a couple books that I go back to over and over and over. And that E-Myth Revisited is one that I go back to over and over and over to say, hey, am I running the E-Myth Revisited play in my business? So hopefully that answered the question. I kind of rambled.
Sure. It's the thing is that you've gone from one step to the other. And as you've moved forward, you say, okay, because what's next, right? So to be clear in my question and my comment is that a lot of people will get to a point where they've accomplished something. And I'll use me as an example, right? So I run now 3 times a week, and my goal is to do that 9-minute mile. It always has been. That's always been my goal. Why has it always been my goal? Because I don't go for the next step after that, right? So a couple of years ago, I hit a 9-minute mile. I ran on and off, and now I'm slowly but surely getting into it. And I've done exactly what you talked about with 1 call a day. Well, I did a mile at a time. Then I did 2 miles, and now I'm doing 3 miles. And now at 4 miles, I want to get the first 3 at 9. But I know what I have to do to get there. And then I've already figured out what the next goal is going to be. It's actually going to be consistent 9 miles. That's the next goal, right?
Yeah.
So for me to say I can go faster, I have to know my own limitations, or do I want to work that hard in running? That is, in business, it's that 9-minute mile or that 5-minute mile or whatever you want to do. What's the next step as you approach it? And that's really where people do this. And I can equate that to in their business. When they get a deal, they say, okay, they got to put all their focus on that fucking deal. And that's all they do. And then when the deal closes, okay, I have no business. And then they got to go ramp it up again, right? And that, you've seen that, right? Everywhere, haven't you?
Yeah. I mean, I asked a question at one of our Monday masterminds a couple weeks ago. I just asked my agents just on the spot, what would you do if you had $100,000 in the bank right now? And I was asking them for 5 minutes, just really think about it, write it down. Very few, I think there was maybe one person in the room of, 35 or 40 people that we had that day. Only one person had a clear idea of what they would do with $100,000 in the bank. And then I asked them to raise their hand, who's got $100,000 in the bank? None of them did. I said, is it because you don't know what you would do with it if you had it? Because if you grew up the way I did, we never had $100,000 in the bank. I don't think we ever had $100,000 in the bank. I know in my 20s and early 30s, I never did, and so, you get 30,000 in the bank. You had a really good month in closings. You close 5 or 6 deals. You don't really know what to do with that money,
Right.
And so you haven't really thought it through. What's the next step? What's the next step after that? So, yeah, I think, it's kind of interesting to talk about this, because do we not have $100,000 in the bank because we haven't worked hard enough for it? Or do we just not have the clarity on what would be the next after the step we're at today? So it's really an interesting concept to think about. I think that is what slows a lot of people's progress. And we all get stuck. I've been times in my career where I've been stuck as a broker, as a team leader, as a listing agent. There's always going to be times where you're going to be stuck. But you got to go through that digging deep inside yourself to really figure out what is it that you really want. And I would say, more importantly, what do you not want life to look like? And I think when you kind of know what the ultimate goal of that is, it makes making these moves and moving up these levels a whole lot easier when you know for sure this aligns with the way I'm ultimately wanting to go. Because I've also made decisions in my life that didn't necessarily line up with what I wanted my ultimate goal to look like in life. It created more work. It created another job. It created more stress.
Yeah.
It was a good business opportunity. It was more money, but it really didn't align with what I truly wanted my life to look like. And so, definitely, we all make mistakes on that. But I think just in general, just from real estate agents that I'm coaching that are here at my company, I think just not having clarity on what they truly want is a big thing that slows them down. I want to get these 6 deals closed. Well, okay, what's after that? So I think it's an interesting concept that you brought up, Dave.
You know what? When I first got into owning my brokerage, which I had for 21 years, I was of that nature and of that question. I was a business person. This is why I got into the business. That's why I ultimately owned that brokerage. And my question would always be, they come out, I got another deal. I say, great, what's next? And the limited mindset would get pissed at me, right? And that's happened, 25 years ago, 20 years ago, where you say, okay, great, what's next? And they don't realize that you're coaching them to say, okay, let's keep going. Well, I gotta worry about this one, but you've really got to make it like a train, a machine, right? Yeah. Where you keep moving and you keep building as you go along. And I think that's where a mindset shift of growth mindset, the limited mindset, where you've got to take care of one thing at a time. But when I say one thing at a time, it brings me to my next point is, you said you've got to decide what you've got to do and what you got to do to win and to be successful. You also have to prioritize that one thing first and get that done really well, and then you can move on to another. Like, you didn't think of being a team leader and owning 10 offices at that same time.
Yeah, not at all. Yeah. Yeah, you do have to, whatever level you're at right now. I mean, you can have the plan and I have not arrived yet where I ultimately want to be, but we've got to do it. We've got to dominate at the current level we're at right now before we can move even to the next level. And so I think that's another thing that agents get wrong as well. I see a lot of people in the business today that, they sell 20 houses and the next thing you know, they want to be a team leader. Well, I mean, have you really dominated production? Have you really dialed in how to list properties? Can you teach others how to do it? I'd say, so whatever level you're in, you really need to kind of maximize it and become an expert at that level you're at right now before moving on to that next level
Yeah.
at the same time as well. Because the struggles you go through trying to master the level that you're at today are going to help you at the next level and the next level and the next level. So yeah, don't go too fast either. I think I see a lot of people trying to go too fast. You really just need to dominate at the level you're at and then move up to the next level. At least that just worked for me. So
no, you're absolutely right. I mean, and basically getting to one place, you said you're doing 20 deals. Okay, great. So what does your lead generation look like? What do your leads look like? What are you going to do for someone in your team? It's not what they can help you do, is what's your value? What's your unique service proposition to the agent that you're going to recruit to come and work on your team? Because let's face it, one of the things agents don't understand when they say, I want to start a team, is what they're saying is, I want to start a business. They don't realize that it's a business, and to have business, you need to have assets. One of those assets is leads. One of those assets is systems, processes, value, right? To go through that. We're coming up on time here, and this has been pretty cool, because we didn't even get into 90% of what we talked about the other day, which was building stuff and all the other stuff. But I think what we talked about today was so valuable to that real estate agent that really wants to do it and can be stuck. And, there's a lot of questions, because as you've built your business, as I've built mine, we've had these stuck moments. We've had these regrets. We have, we both have it today, where we still have questions when we make the call. We get nervous when we make the call, right? And we need something to get us out of that. Is it a coach? Is it an accountability partner? Is it a mentor? What is it? Is it a friend or a spouse? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I totally 100%. Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's so crucial.
So with Phil, you've started as an agent, you went to a team leader, to a brokerage, and now you have 10 offices. And guys, I want everybody to understand that Phil doesn't work, 80 hours a week, right? He's got it set up where he's mastered and dominated, as he said, one thing at a time, and was able to grow forward. Hey, Phil, if there's one thing that you could say to that real estate agent to help them grow their business, what would it be?
I would say, other than, we spend a lot of time talking about finding a coach, but ultimately, the battle is you versus you. It's not what the market's doing. It's not what interest rates are doing. It's not what your competitor's doing. It's not who put up a billboard across the bridge. The real battle that you have control over is inside. It's you versus you. It's your daily activities. It's your commitment. It's you getting started. It's you doing the things you don't want to do. And so if you can master that one thing, it will really, really pay off for you. And if you don't master it and you try to go up to these next levels, you'll end up probably getting exposed for not having that truly mastered, because you got a bunch of agents that are looking for you for leadership and guidance, and you don't have it all together. And not that I do. Okay. I think all the time, like, why in the world does anybody follow me? I've got all kind of issues going on with me. Right. But really, if you can really just master the simple, basic stuff that we know we need to be doing, you will have success at every single level.
Yeah, absolutely. And Phil, I want to thank you so much for coming on the broadcast today. It's been really great, because when you hear from successful people such as yourself, that we know it's not as easy as it sounds, but we also can parallel and equate it to things in our life that we've already experienced. And sometimes it always will make it easier, right? So how do people get in touch with you? People from all over the country will see this, but especially in Alabama, how do people get in touch with you, and if they want to contact you and have a conversation?
Yeah, easiest way to reach out, if you want some more info or have any more questions, you can always find me on social media. I am on Instagram, not quite as active on there as I am on Facebook, but I'm an easy guy to find on either one. Just look up Phil Duke Jr. First Class Real Estate. You can also go to phildukejr.com/call if you'd like to hop on a video chat call. Again, that syncs to my calendar. So just find an opening on there. Would love to talk anybody through anything you heard today, anything you need help with. I like to come from contribution If it turns into something down the road, great. If not, it's just my way of giving back to the real estate business.
So, Phil, you have 10 offices, and they're in other states too, right?
Yeah, we're in 5 different states right now. Yeah.
What states are you in now?
Right now, I've got obviously Alabama, I've got Florida, Tennessee, Louisiana, Texas, and Virginia.
So that's Mr. Phil Duke for everybody. And Phil, you know what? I have 2 other things for you before we end today.
All right.
One is one simple question and then a statement. One, how do I, Dave Finale, how do I help you grow your business?
Man, I think just keep doing what you're doing here today, man. I think this is great, giving back to the industry. Obviously I'm looking forward to hopefully having you as a guest on my podcast and learning from some of your, years and years of experience as well. But man, I appreciate this so much. This was a great conversation, high level stuff on here. And we didn't even get into 90% of what we thought we were going to get into. So maybe we can do a follow-up episode at some point.
Absolutely. I'd love to do that. Hey man. And then as with every Real Estate Talk TGIF, you came on really to get the hat.
That's right.
There it is. There's the hat. The hat's coming out to you guys. Next week, we have John Pugh coming up. John Pugh is from California. Great story, great agent, and real nice guy, and very inspirational. But he knows real estate really well. So, Phil Duke, thank you so much for coming on. Hang out with me for a minute. We're going to be right back after our ending. And everybody tell me what you think about this. And
I liked it, man.
I liked it too.
Better than anything I've got. So
thanks everybody for coming. We'll see you next week.